Stephen Taranto, we're here doing a guitar lesson because I hit you up because I'm very interested in the stuff that you do. I love the way that you pick. I love the way, I mean, honestly, like I love the shape and the look of your right hand. And I'm a big right hand guy. I love picking hand technique. I love that stuff. It's like very close to my heart. I was a huge, and still am a huge Paul Gilbert fan. And he has one of the most accurate, awesome right hands pretty much of any of the shredder guitarists that I know. And one of the things he has is power, and that pick attack, the clarity, and it's just the velocity is like always at 10. I just love that stuff. Is that kind of where you came from as well? You loved those dudes? Is that like some of your bigger influences too?
Yeah, I mean, I've grown to love them. When I first heard them, it made me want to just learn every guitar, anything that resembled a guitar. Paul Gilbert, especially, like when he sort of did the whole like that sort of like
Come on.
I haven't warmed up yet, but
That's fine.
I remember hearing
We'll
that
get to the
the
warm
first
up.
time.
We'll get to the warm up.
We will, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
And yeah, Paul Gilbert. I mean, it's if anyone sort of heard a lot of my playing, it's pretty obvious. There's a huge Paul Gilbert sort of influence there, and he's just one of the most precise and interesting. Everything just sounds so like there's so much intent behind every note he sort of plays. Like nothing is sort of half cooked. He just like he just plays these really smooth and like intricate lines, but like just happens to play them like 20 times faster than anyone else can, just for the same amount of precision. So definitely huge influence, and like it's just I mean still has such a profound influence.
Okay.
It's still like pretty
it.
timeless too.
He's amazing. Yeah. And one of the things about guitar playing that we get to is we get drummers, especially modern drummers that play very fast stuff. That is more or less a newer kind of thing. There was fast drumming in the 70s and the 80s, but really in the 90s and then especially the 2000s, it bumped up like crazy. But as guitar players, you and I get guitarists from the late 70s and 80s, like Yngwie Malmsteen, where they come in and they are still considered extremely fast and clean. Like still some of the old stuff, you go like Jason Becker, like, holy shit, that isn't just crazy for the time. That's still crazy, you know? Whereas modern metal drumming, it has evolved so much in the last 20 years. So it's one of the things that we kind of benefit from, which I love. And so when you were younger, you loved, I think, a lot of the same kinds of things. John Bertucci was a huge influence for me as well. So when you were first learning this stuff, and I want to know this because I would love to get better with my technique, what are some of the things that you did when you were trying to improve your left and right hand coordination? Because like that's one of my favorite things about your playing is that you have just so much connective tissue between your two hands. Are there like certain exercises that you played or a mindset that you had when you were trying to develop that, or what's up?
I mean, definitely it was more just about I guess I sort of borrowed a bit from the Sean Lane school of like, I mean, Sean Lane just had this innate ability to play things 40 times faster than anyone else. But I think when he first started, he wasn't worried about cleanliness or how precise everything was. It was just sort of working on the speed first. So I kind of did that. I mean, this is before I knew he sort of did something similar, but I was always sort of concerned because when you're young, you're just like, I just want to play fast. Like in your mind, it sounds good. So to me, it was just like, it didn't really matter how many notes I was sort of playing. Like I do a 3-note pattern, like I'm just going to, sounds terrible, obviously, but like all I was worried about was how fast I can get the right hand. And then you sort of reverse engineer it from there. So if it's 3 notes on the string, then it's like, okay, I've got to, slow down my picking hand and actually get everything kind of locked in. And honestly, it was very much a matter of, working backwards and really slowing things down and kind of, staring at my left hand and then staring at my right hand and seeing everything kind of sort of lock in. And then that's really it. Like, it's probably a very similar experience to a lot of people, nothing too outlandishly different, I'm guessing, and how you may have approached it, for instance.
Well, I think one of the things that I started doing quite later is Troy Grady, who's amazing on YouTube. He does crazy guitar stuff. He talks a lot about chunking. About there's some neuroscientist that he interviewed that he said that we walk by chunking together movements. We don't go like, okay, left foot up and then move it over and then put it. We think no, that's just a step. So we take 1,000 movements and we put it in one thing that we call walking. So chunking together different groups of notes, like, I mean, if we're doing like I'm chunking together each string, basically. So it minimizes the amount of uh, different things that you need to think about. You just put it together, and the way that we do chunking, the way that we really nail it is we think about one pivotal, one emphasis note, and that's typically the downstroke, the first downstroke on any string. So that's what I've done. I don't know if that's something similar to you, because I know that your left and right hand coordination is just about the best that I've ever seen. So like when you're thinking about it, are you thinking first note downstroke? That's my anchor point. Is that kind of similar, or you think something different?
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, the anchor point, it's sort of like it's your mind's way of sort of finding, yeah, some sort of attachment point. Everything else just feels like it kind of falls into place.
Yes.
Similar to the chunking, I never sort of considered it chunking as such. And this is sort of a term I've only kind of recently sort of for like heard about.
Mhm.
And now, the more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, I guess I kind of did it, but I did it, I guess, more in blocks. Like I always found, obviously, the problem was when you started a sequence on a down stroke, and then when you go to another string, you start on an upstroke. So 3 notes per string is like the biggest example. So something like and it's just like you can kind of borrow that and then move it to the other string. So if you're doing a full that sort of thing. All I'm really doing or thinking about
Yeah.
is incorporating what I learned on the E and B string, and literally making like a little micro movement with my arm, like a physical movement, and just and copying it. And that's so I'm thinking in like I guess chunks of 6 notes. I guess if you're
Right.
doing that, if that's what you consider chunking,
Yes.
so it'd be like 6 notes, 6 notes, 6 notes. But the actual technique shouldn't have to change because it's just starting it down, start on an up, start on a down, start on an up. That's really all there is
Can
to
can
it.
you can you play that again one more time, just slower, just so I can like
Yeah,
watch your right hand a little bit? Because I
yeah,
feel like
sure.
you're doing
I get it.
so much seesaw back and forth motion that's like it's like it's you cannot overstate how small the motions that you're doing are, and how
Mhm,
important every tiny motion is if you're trying to get
mhm.
that stuff really clean.
Yeah, perfect. Let me try and get a bit clear. Um,
Yeah.
all
However,
right.
yeah, I mean, you can always just move the camera down too if you want, and we just cut off your beautiful face a little bit. I can also do that here.
100%.
Here's the
As
camera
long as I
without my
can get a bit.
face.
Let me.
Yeah, it
Can you
looks
see
great.
that?
Yeah, perfect.
So, so
Okay,
so
so the yeah, what's
it's a little bit different going up because I do these. I've noticed I do these kind of micro every seventh note. So like I do this kind of whipping motion to get sort of across.
right?
So
Damn.
the way so you can sort of see it's like one motion, one motion, one motion. That's how I kind of approach it.
Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, so I don't know exactly what you're playing. I'm just gonna play like you're doing like groups of three. You're just groups of
3 notes
six.
per string.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's just
I'm
like
just
a
gonna play
E
something I'm
minor.
pretty comfortable with. So I'll do
Oh yeah,
mine.
perfect. Thank you.
So I'm doing economy picking. That's the only way I've been able to get that speed up, because I find
Wow.
that the alternate picking just I really never focused on it with fat. I got to the point where I found out about what economy picking was. I'm like, oh, that's how I do 3 note per string. I couldn't do it
Mhm.
before, and I kind of I'm gonna get to kind of what you're doing and see if I can kind of replicate a really shitty version of it. But the way that I thought about economy picking was economy is for mid to high tempo, alternate is for low to mid to somewhat high tempo, but the rhythmic
Mhm.
stability for alternate picking is much higher than economy
Oh
picking.
yeah.
Economy picking is like it has like an inconsistency to it, whereas alternate picking is just bang on. Every note has the same amount of what I call like resistance. You're always
Mm.
doing this. So no note, unless you're like string skipping, no note is really harder than any other one, other than the string changes. But you can just develop this sort of autonomous right hand where you're always doing this and just
Yeah.
move it around. And then you have to get a bit into two-way pick slanting and try to figure your exit strategies and stuff like that. But
Mm.
yeah, economy picking is kind of my way to do that 3 note per string. But if you're doing those 6 notes,
Yep. It's a
you,
chunk.
I feel like the way that you're doing it has so much snap to it. It's got
That's definitely some pink slanting involved there as well. See if I can go
yeah.
back a bit.
Yeah, but yeah, back is totally fine. Yeah. Damn.
Little sloppy, but yeah, the way I guess it's just sort of something again. It was from that Paul Gilbert school of just being
Yes.
able to pick every note, and the economy thing always just felt really unnatural to me. I'm not really,
No way.
but kind of get it. I mean, I'll need to spend like a good few weeks. It's really
Okay, so
yeah,
this is news to me. So you aren't an economy picking kind of guy.
not really. I mean, I'll do it for like
Wow.
groups of like a cascading note. So if it's like going down 3 strings, I'll do something like that sort of thing.
What the hell
Where you're
was
kind of
that?
going. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's like up, down, down, sort of thing. But doing like 3 notes per string just feels really. I don't know. It's,
Okay.
it's one of those things that sort of never really stuck with me, which is
W-
really weird.
Yeah.
I've always liked the I guess the control of having alternate picking because I can go from
Right.
3 notes and then I can switch to 4 notes. So like,
Yes, of course.
obviously string skipping. It's like, I don't feel like you can only do that with economy.
One second. Hold on. Okay, I have 2 things to say. The first thing is that I asked a friend of mine to transcribe these videos so I could put them up with tabs, and I realized now that is going to be impossible.
I'll make an attempt. I can
No,
help.
no, 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 no.
It's good stuff eventually.
I can't ask any more of you. You've already been so kind with doing the video. I don't think it's going to be possible for him to transcribe any of the stuff that you just played. And
Me too,
also,
probably.
let's
Watch it
go
back.
back a couple steps to the thing that you played that was 3 notes and then descending. It's almost like an arpeggio. You play a few notes at the top and then you descend and then you go back to the top. What was that?
So if we're starting on the 6th fret, it's like 6, 8. So 6, 8, 10.
Yep.
Down, up, down.
Yep.
And then 6, 8, 10, but E string, B string, G string. So, and that's all down, down, down. And then you can go down the strings. That's a cool way to sort of getting some kind of artificial sort of speed, sort of nice 6.
Yeah.
And you're obviously very good at sweeping and economy, it seems.
Yeah, the economy is
That's
kind of my
actually,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, so that's how I've kind of gotten around. Like, I mean, having to pick all that would be pretty difficult because obviously 1 note per string. So that's
Yeah.
just one way I've gotten around it. But like, yeah, I don't know. That's like one of the only kind of economy-ish, I guess, sort of techniques that I do like to incorporate in some passages and stuff. But
It's
um,
great.
I,
I mean,
I
you
don't know,
could even take.
is that sweeping or is that
Well,
economy? I don't
yeah,
even know.
I mean, when I'm playing that, and I just played it just briefly, but
Yeah, there you go. Not too difficult.
it's just a really cool idea. But if you could take,
There you go. Oh man.
doing our diminished arpeggios like that is pretty cool. I know that there was a, you know how like you might know I know a guy here in Vancouver who is in my opinion one of, if not the best metal guitarists in BC. I've never heard anybody with such a natural, amazing kind of flair and feel to his guitar playing that isn't in a big huge band like Jeff Loomis, right? He's very amazing, and he showed me something one time that took a thing that I'm very familiar with, which was, this is probably something you'd be very good at, taking a diminished arpeggio on the top 3 strings, and instead of doing it ascending and descending, he would like cross the strings over like that with like a ring finger in the middle.
Oh.
And it was like a slight change to something that I'm so familiar with. And it threw me through a loop for like a week. I'm like, okay, what the fuck was that, dude?
Yeah,
And
what was that again? Show me that again.
yeah, it's basically just like taking those 5 notes, you know, but instead of playing them ascending, you go like index and then ring on the B, and then pinky on the high E, and then index on the high E, ring on the B, and then pinky on the G. So you're doing like an
Oh,
X, kind of like an X shape.
oh, I see. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
yeah, and it's just
Yeah, wow.
yeah, it's just a weird take on something. So you show me something like this, and it's very similar
Yeah.
to shapes that I know, but it's just a slight change that I go,
Mhm.
oh, okay, that's and that's kind of what I want to get out of these videos too is just share ideas and new kind of takes on things that maybe you and I are both quite familiar with, but
Mm.
in a new kind of a new element to it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the thing is, I'll take some of these sort of shapes and sort of, I guess, familiar passages people have, and then you can kind of incorporate the left hand sort of change the sort of feel of it. So I like a lot of sort of double notes, and you've got the B to G string sort of relationship where they're a major third apart. So
Right.
you can kind of get two of the same notes or even a higher note on a lower string pretty easily. So say we're taking that technique, we'll take it up to like the 12th fret because it's got some stretches there.
Yeah, sure.
So with that same sort of idea, you can do something like sounds kind of alien when you oh you can
Yeah.
do it like a diminished shape.
Wow.
And you can like so really like when people think it's like quite
Jeez.
alien, all I'm really doing is taking these sort of familiar techniques and just kind of moving the left hand to see what sort of notes you can do. So like for instance, I can make the G string a higher note. Like if you can stretch your fingers that it's probably hard to do standing up, but like um, sounds kind of crap, but kind of a bit late. Um, doesn't sound as good as I thought it would. That's pretty much the idea. Is it's like it's really just. And Paul Gilbert did that a lot. Like he did the whole what's that pattern he did? Um,
Oh yeah.
whatever it is, but
Yeah.
he'll do it like whatever it is, and then you'll just adopt the same sort of techniques, but just sort of morph them with the left hand. But
Yeah, it really is like guitar playing. What I've said about it is the technique side of it is at a base level. If you are able to do all different permutations with your left hand, and then all the combinations of those with your right hand, and put them together, then you can play anything that your physical stretching kind of hand can allow you to play. Like you will not you won't have any weak points. You see a lot of amazing guitar players that don't use their pinky very much. It's like, well,
mhm,
bro, you would get 25% better if you had your pinky going on. Like you would be able to add new things. And if you just have, so that's why when I was younger, I would sit there and just try to drill out all the awkward points of my fingers. You know, like I would
mhm,
do. I mean, a big one would just be just simple stuff like trying to. You know, that kind of thing where you're like, okay, what are the awkward combinations? And I would learn new stuff, and I go, oh, I found an awkward combination. And one of the
mhm,
things that I would do is learn things that were way outside my skill range, and find an awkward thing, and be like, oh, I'm going to drill that for the next couple of days until
mhm.
that feeling, and you know, especially between the like, you know, arpeggios like this inverted dominant, those kind of arpeggios, it has a weird kind of feel. You know, you have something more similar, like a simple, like a major seven inverted, and then you could.
Oh yeah,
Uh, well, I can't do it there. But anyway, so taking these kind of four-note arpeggios and finding the awkward spots, and that's kind of what you're doing there. You're not even necessarily thinking about the music theory or what you could do with it. You're just taking the shapes and going, okay, well, I'll use the same technique, but what does it sound like if I move my ring finger up every string or my index finger down every string or whatever it is?
yeah, and you can follow your ear like to what notes when you land on certain notes. Like what does that do to the I guess the musical aspect of like say it's a lick and it's got like a clear chordal sort of movement. It's like well I know. Personally, I like to keep things kind of as symmetrical as possible. So you know, if it's like a that's just like everything's boxed in between the 17th fret and the
Right.
12th fret.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, oh, if I want to morph it into it, like if I want to follow a pattern that sort of follows a clear chord progression, you can't really just go. But like you know, eventually you're just sort of taking that, and so say if we're doing like a so what's that? We're following that progression in my head. It's like I got to find notes that fit that. So the first one, and well, to get it kind of whatever they'll do for now and then.
Right.
So that's all I'm really doing. It's like the same, but like, just finding the notes within that sort of chord progression you're sort of aiming for. But sometimes you'll like land on a random note. It's like, oh, well, maybe that could be cool. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
That could be something like that. And it's like, oh, okay, well, let's see where this goes. And you sort of let your ear kind of
Well,
guide the passage
yeah.
in a way. But
Yeah.
while trying to maintain the technique. I mean, that's a big way of how I like to approach certain passages and
Well,
things.
yeah, that kind of takes me
Yeah.
to like one of my most the questions I had for you that was like I'm most excited about is so a lot of the stuff you incorporate is like you incorporate some harmonic minor, but then also some jazz modal stuff, and you do chromaticism sometimes as well. So like, how are you like? Do you think about it in terms of chord progressions? Are you thinking about it in terms of um, I'll do a broad stroke of chords? They're okay. I'll do a lead thing, then I'll go back and revise. Are you thinking about pitches and notes every second that you're doing this kind of stuff, or are you just like mostly doing shapes? Like what do you when you see the guitar? Like what is the pattern that shouts at you that yells at you the most, or are they all kind of equal?
Um, Honestly, for me, it's I guess it's sort of the big metal sort of approach, but I've always sort of drawn more towards shape. So I'll sort of see the fretboard in a quite visual sort of way. So I'll know like a minor arpeggio or minor scale, sorry, would be like there's like that weird sort of like diagonal sort of bit there on the on sort of higher end of the scale. But I base things a lot around shapes. I'm not super like I'm not like classically trained by any means in terms of like theory or that sort of thing. I tend to sort of follow my ear and really follow any sort of. I mean, I follow rules within the context of the scale. I'm probably sort of outlining, but then if I play a couple accidental notes and then I kind of just roll with it. But yeah, definitely more of a visual. Like when I look down, I kind of see things in a more visual sort of way, and that's how it's. I guess it's like a muscle memory
Yeah.
sort of mechanism. I know everyone's pretty different. I don't know if you're sort of the same. It's very
Well,
shape like, or you follow your ear a lot, or
yeah, I tend to I kind of go through phases of going back and forth. One of the things about the style of music that I play like anybody watching that doesn't know, I play in a technical death metal band called Archspire. So what we typically do is we do lots of harmonic minor, lots of diminished. I do a little bit of melodic minor, some natural minor. Every once in a while we do harmonic major. So we do some like kind of some a little bit outside things, but we typically stick within, we do a bit of whole tone every once in a while, some symmetrical stuff. But for the most part, we're in natural minor with a bit of a twist on something, and then we might do a spooky chord here or whatever. One of the things that I really do quite a bit, and it might be to my detriment because I love making sure all the notes lead very well into the next note. So every note has a specific spot. And this one note, if it's slightly out of place, it'll affect note 5 in the next bar or whatever. I want to make sure everything. But there is a time and place for a disconnected kind of sound. Like the thing that we're doing is we're making music that evokes an emotion, and sometimes disconnectedness is actually important rather than a failure in some way. So for me, I'm always thinking about not that I'm classically trained, but classical voice leading and how does it kind of flow into the next thing. But sometimes it does take away from the disjointed, dissonant sound of what death metal typically has been. And I find it hard to walk the balance between the two. I don't know if you vibe with that.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, even if it's just like one or two bar passage that leads into sort of the next part, but everything preceding it was probably just like I know you do that a lot. You'll have these like beautiful like almost sort of chromatic chord progressions, be like
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then you'll go into like some like
Right.
sort of whole tone thing to sort of
Yeah.
which is a cool little way to sort of bridge. Okay, this was the melodic part. Okay, we're going into something a bit more, like
Well,
a bit
here's the
heavier.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
they are just tools.
Mhm.
A jarring whole tone run, and for anybody watching that doesn't know, whole tone is like everything divided by. It's all just separated by the same distance, but it resets your ear, resets the tonal center for a part, so that you can then present something that the term I use is to sell it to someone. So if I can sell you this sound, and if you're able to buy it as a listener that that makes sense to go into the next as the next part, then I've kind of done my job, you know. So that voice leading, that kind of thing, using spookier, zanier, weirder sounds like that to reset the listener's ear so that they can pick up on what you're trying to lay down for the next part is really important, and it makes for a more cohesive, more listenable kind of song, and which is what we typically try to pride ourselves on,
Oh,
or try to
and
do.
you 100% nailed that. Just for that very reason, like you sort of know when to sort of push and pull from the more outside stuff to something that's a little bit more, I guess, palatable, if you will.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yes,
death metal at the
palatable.
end of the day, but like something that's
Yes,
sort of got a lot of cross appeal in terms of musicality as well. Like, classically trained violinist will, reacts to
right, 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 right.
Archspire, and
Yeah,
they'll find heaps of like things that they find quite palatable. But
yeah,
then I love the idea of taking something like a whole tone run or whatever, because you've got literally every tone at your disposal. You can base the key off that note
yeah,
going into the next riff, or that note,
yeah.
and the possibilities are literally endless. And I kind of take that approach as well. I know, so you do that a lot, like a lot of just one or two bar leadings into something else. I do
Hmm.
that so much. It's such a good way to just give yourself a chance to sort of move the song forward, because we
Yeah,
know it. I know you're a bit more in terms of song structure. It's quite compared to like other death metal
yeah,
bands. It is quite what's the word I'm looking for? I guess more contemporary. It's got a very like open riff, verse,
yeah,
chorus. Well, not
yeah,
maybe not chorus,
yes,
but like it's a bit more structured, like
yes, it is.
in that way. Whereas
Yeah,
I guess because I pretty much only have ever written instrumental music, like I've never really worked with a singer or anything. Like I don't really have those kind of gauges, I guess, to work with. It's like, oh,
right.
maybe the vocals will fit here, where I kind of have to sort of play the part of every instrument. And like, if you just have a riff where you're kind of chugging or something with nothing else going on, it's probably a little boring. So I have to kind of fill the space with maybe an interesting riff or
Well,
or something.
yeah,
Or
I
interesting.
think that what you and I, it is a hard thing to do to be able to relate to the listener using an instrument that isn't the human voice, because the human voice, even if you're doing, I mean, there's a great example with Lorna Shore. You have a vocalist who has found a way to relate to the listener in terms of emotions, by through lyrics, through pitches, through sounds. He's not a melodic vocalist, but he does obviously incorporate pitches in his crazy animal sounds, and everything kind of has a pitch, even though it's more like white noise or something, or distortion and compression. Um,
Like a frequency.
yeah, exactly. It's a frequency of some kind. Maybe not melodic, but it has timbre. It has there's repetition inside of there. There's yeah. So what they have that we don't is the ability to relate to the audience in a certain way. And I mean, guitarists like Tosin Abasi or Steve Vai or Joe Satriani, they or Yngwie Malmsteen, all those guys, what I think that they excel at doing is creating a vibe of the human voice on the instrument. So they almost, it's not necessarily that they have lyrics to work with, and lyrics, holy shit, lyrics are uh they are a superpower to your melody. Like if I play
Mm.
guitar and I mimic some Taylor Swift song on guitar, it's like for while I'm teaching a lesson or whatever, it sounds cool, but you put in a couple of ambiguous words in there that can relate to anybody or relate to whoever's listening, and tweak a certain thing in their brain, it's like supercharges the melody. And so when you and I try to write music, we're sort of like, that's what we're up against. Not that all music is competition, but that's what other musicians have at their disposal that you and I do not. And
Mhm.
working with a vocalist is great. And you're right, we do songs that are as structured as possible so that we can sort of, we use what people know of music already, and we take that and we flip it a little bit. We go, okay, well, you know what pop music sounds like? We're going to play death metal, and we're going to just have hints of the structure, and we'll have a chorus with a repeating lyric so that you could recognize the song title when you think about it. You're like, what's that? Oh, yeah, right. The chorus is the name of the song. Like, we really
Mhm.
put a lot of emphasis on that. But I think guys like Tosin Abasi, Steve Vai, they put a vowel sound on their leads, off typically with a wah or or effects or whatever, or even just in their fingers. They can just make it sound almost vocal, and that's where they really come through and shine. And that's the reason why they're so well known. Is
Mhm.
they write relatable guitar lines, and man, that shit's hard to write.
Super hard to write, and like to just find your own voice, like you said, on an instrument. like a
Hmm.
voiceless instrument, I guess, if it, well, in a sort of
It,
um what's the word, like can't use words this morning, in a sort of very visceral sort of way, like because you're not actually singing, or there's no
yes.
words or,
Yeah.
or, or a
Yeah.
voice involved.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do. And those guys you mentioned are literally like the pinnacle of how it can be done. Like just having such a unique
Totally.
kind of voice, and it can
Yes.
be technical. I guess you have more room for technicality. Being a guitar can produce notes a little quicker than the human voice can, unless you're an absolute god at it.
Sure.
But
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
it's
For
not
sure.
about speed
Yeah.
for vocals. Like you said, the lyrics kind of paint the interest, I guess, in your
Yeah,
like piano.
the lyrics, man, they supercharge your melody. But okay, so
Big time.
I have a question about your technique here as well. Um, so you recently did a video where you played like the tapping section of Eruption, but you picked every single note. And so the pick
Yeah.
slanting in that video, how did you? I actually have a better idea of how you did that because you're an alternate picking lunatic, and I actually didn't know that. I thought that you were switching back and forth between alternate and economy where it made the most sense, like a sane person. But I guess you aren't that, and you are just insanely good at alternate picking. So how the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's sort of just an exercise in repetition. So it's essentially just like one note on one string and then two on the other, and it's just sort of this. So if I can see it from side on, and that's sort of just repeat. It's been a while since I played it, but the actual technique itself is just.
Wow.
Oh, it's sloppy. But essentially, I sort of, again, I guess it is a chunk in your will.
Yeah.
I'm really
Yes.
liking the term chunk. The
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
'cause I never really thought of it in my mind. It was always just like that's just how you have to play that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So starts with a downstroke.
So when you're
There
playing
is a
that,
lot of movement, I
yeah,
find. So you do
yeah.
kind of, at least I sort of, I cap out at a certain speed. Like I can't go faster than that sort of thing. Just it's probably fast enough, I guess. Kind of make
Well,
music at the end
yeah,
of the
I
day.
think it's fast enough. One of the things about guitar is that if everything was on one long string and we had a million fingers, then we could play anything. We could play
Mhm.
super low stuff to high stuff. We could do shred all the way up. We could pick whatever. But because our instrument is built for our hands, it's like we have to adapt to how it's set up, and string changing is the hardest part. You could trem pick all day, and all you need is lots of endurance. But the intricacies of switching back and forth between the G string and the B string quickly with odd numbered groupings, that's where
Mhm.
guitar gets fucking really hard.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know,
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's still very difficult. It's something you can't really just sort of. I feel like picking is one of those techniques that unless you're sort of working on it every day, like the skill bar like diminishes
oh,
like
I don't like. I
at a
didn't know
minute.
that. Or really? I
It
hope
does for me
not.
at least.
Oh fuck.
Well, you're doing something right then.
Oh
Clearly.
no. Oh no, dude. Okay,
I mean, compared like
let me
I
try
don't know.
that. Let me try that real quick, and I want to see kind of. I want you to tell me kind of how it sounds because it's a little bit
Sure.
different sounding than yours. Yeah, I mean, I guess I get the inside outside pick slanting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. You know what I might do to switch that up? Just like if I was to put that onto a record, if I was to write a riff using that technique, which now I might because it's really cool sounding,
Hell yeah.
is I might actually hybrid pick it.
Oh, interesting. Oh god.
That's something that I've been
Dude, that's
working on,
crazy.
yeah, quite a bit lately.
Are you going pluck down up, pluck down up? It's
Yeah,
always the same.
yeah, yeah. Really,
Interesting.
like you said, it's the same kind of thing. It's like just repetition. So you could take
Mm.
or you could
That's insane.
yeah, yeah. I actually I went through about a week or 2 weeks where I was like, this technique is cool, or is it annoying? I can't really tell. I don't really know if it's annoying or good. It's
It
it
sounds annoying when I do it, but it sounds good when you do it.
it's you
I'll
need
need I'll need to do it off stream.
you need quite a bit of palm muting.
Mhm.
But I mean, I think that a lot of the you might be the exception to this rule, but I think a lot of really great guitar players say that they're inherently lazy, and I think that that's true. And I think it's important to do that because you want to play the most amount of notes cleanly as possible with doing the least amount of work. And
Of
I feel
course.
like with your alternate picking, you're doing everything so cleanly, doing quite a bit of work, but it sounds way more aggressive and way more upfront, and the velocity is way higher than me doing something like this where it's like hybrid pick has a bit of a softer, a bit of a rounder kind of pluck to it than a pick does. So the way that you're playing it has more punch, but I'm playing it just in a lazier way. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I feel like you can afford to go faster, because there is a sort of slight inconsistency in the dynamics.
Yeah.
Whereas when you just alternate pick everything, you kind of um, everything every note is sort of just inherently just about as hard
Yeah.
as the last note sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's just funny that because like you're doing like a down, so was it a pluck down up?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Where I'm struggling
yeah.
with that is because I have to reset my brain every 3 notes, so that's like one chunk. Whereas when I'm
Oh
doing,
yeah.
I think of it as 6. It's literally up, down. There's no deviation
Oh,
from
that's
up, down.
great.
So it starts off down, up,
Yeah.
down, up, down, up.
Yeah.
So in my mind, like
Yeah.
that feels really natural. I can sort of lock into sort of like a pat, like a sort of a whole pattern essentially. Whereas
Yeah.
when I'm doing the pluck thing, I've got to think, okay, pluck down, up, and when I pluck, I need to go, okay, I can't go up,
Reset.
down.
Yeah.
I gotta go down, up again. So
Yeah.
it's my I find myself finding it hard to reset quicker.
Hmm, hmm,
Whereas
hmm.
with that, I have 6 notes before I'm like, okay, I'm back to the start. So
Yeah. Ah,
but
wow. That sounds
it's
awesome.
just different. It's a different way of approaching it. I think it's just sort of a matter of because obviously that feels really natural to you because you're a really good double picker and obviously a really good hybrid picker. I don't really do a lot of hybrid. Like I'll do like if I'm working into like legato runs or something like
Yeah. Yeah.
or playing some sort of chordal shapes and stuff. But
Hmm.
like the really precise stuff, it's just a different way of thinking, I think. And not one isn't right or wrong or anything like that.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
it's cool to have the ability to do as many things as possible. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
make things easier. But
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things about your technique that you might benefit from is in the studio you would have very cohesive, very similar sounding, high velocity picked notes. Whereas if I write a riff that incorporates hybrid picking, that in the studio, that's really where you're going to be able to tell really clearly, hey, that one note is it's a little bit softer than the other ones, and it's something that I've always been trying to work on because I love the idea of hybrid picking because it just gives you 3 extra picks and it allows you to do, I mean, I love this shape here doing diminished.
oh, that's cool.
So like,
Oh, you're hybriding that.
yeah, hybrid picking all the ascending. So it really like smooths everything out, but there are inconsistencies between the pick notes and the hybrid things. And so I'm doing some legato and I'm kind of, but if you can really hammer on with your left hand and really like get those fingers slapping onto the frets, then it does round out and equalize some of the. But if you were to alternate pick that would sound the best. Obviously, that would sound way cooler. But I can't. I don't have the. I
Essentially,
just
it's
can't do
more
it.
work for this hand,
Yeah.
but less for this one. Like,
Yeah.
or like you can afford to be a little sloppy on certain fingers,
Yeah.
obviously, because not every. I don't know if you're the same. Like, not every finger is is built equal. Like,
Oh, of course.
doing hammer-ons of this is a lot.
Yeah.
Is a lot less. It's a lot tamer than this one. So I guess that's where the picking sort of like so a pattern like that. It's like a.
Yeah.
That's like I used to do something like that. So it's like stuff and upstroke.
Yes.
Kind of
That's
kind
the
of
way to do it.
economical in a
Yeah.
way, but So
I have a problem with you. I got a problem with you. Earlier in the video, you said you aren't a economy picking player, and you just shredded that so hard using economy picking. So I don't
I feel like
really
it's
now
more tweaking
you're
though. I don't know.
I
Is
don't
there a
trust
difference?
you I don't trust you anymore now. I don't trust you. You said one thing and then
Bust
you
out the craziest hybrid picking line
yeah,
before this
yeah.
before this video ends. No, it's
Oh,
not gonna
that's sweet.
happen.
Yeah. Okay, so I got a couple more questions just about kind of how you think about guitar. So when you're writing a new section, so are you thinking about, and we talked about a little bit about this before, when you're trying to like match the lead line along with the chord progression. So where does the idea spark from? Because like for me, I write a riff, and the real spark of a riff is typically only 2 notes, 3 notes, 4 notes, barely anything. It's all the
Mm,
stuff around it that beefs up the interesting change inside of the riff. So you have a 1 chord, and then you go to a 2 major chord, and you're like, oh, well, that's the spark right there, like a flat
mhm.
2 major chord. You're like, oh, that's interesting. That's a different kind of sound. So how can I support that? Like that would be my muse or my spark, that one thing, and then I beef everything up around it, and then I try to build on it and try to make stuff to support that. So is that kind of similar? Like, how do you get your core ideas and then work on them from there?
It's pretty similar. I mean, it depends on what if I'm working on like a song, generally, I try and keep things really basic at the start. So it usually just starts off with a really basic chord progression. I mean, everything kind of sort of revolves around like your typical metal, like it's like that's very sort of simple sort of chord progression. But how
Mhm.
you can kind of paint that with individual notes is, I guess, where the interesting part comes in, and then through doing things in a more single note, I guess, quicker manner, um, you might stumble upon other notes. You probably feel a bit restricted when playing the chords, but generally it's always chords first, or
Okay.
some kind of movement or something. That's
Okay.
that's sort of how I've always sort of done. There's no like set way, like there's a right or wrong way. But if I'm writing a lick, it's usually like and it's always up in sort of this region, and then things kind of just happen. So that's a cool way to start it, and then you can maybe change key. So there's the I guess the point is I'm not trying to limit myself to any one sort of way, but like so for instance, that was a chord progression that I created with high notes, and then I can then embellish it with chords, so you can kind of work either way.
Right.
Just
Right.
depends. Licks, and all this stupid Instagram stuff is usually starts up here, and then I kind of work
Yeah.
it out down here. But songs would always be like a chord. Like most of the songs I start with are some sort of chordal idea or something, and then it kind of just expands from there. But
So
yeah,
when you're writing stuff, do you have a certain like 'cause, like I love I don't even know if I love it anymore, but using a diminished arpeggio to reset and voice lead into something else is a great tool that I like to use. Trying to figure
mhm.
out new, interesting kind of ways to play diminished arpeggios that are a little bit, that's something I've always worked on, and I mean it's part and parcel with the genre of music that I play. Um,
Mm.
I like that. I also like incorporating dominant chords when I can. Very rarely. There's arpeggio series that I play that's oh
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'll play it slower. So that's the kind of thing. So we have a minor,
Mhm.
dominant, diminished. So in the same kind of position. And I love the idea of incorporating a dominant chord in so quickly that people don't even really notice that you're playing a major chord or the flat seven. It's not really there. It's not
Just hinted.
it's just hinted.
Yeah.
It's like a thing used to beef up the transitional properties of a diminished chord. So, is there anything similar that you play where you're like, man, I love this mode into the. I love that. Like, what
Mhm.
sounds do you love?
Yeah. Well, actually, there's a part in a song I've got called "Pixel Hard Verdant" that just sort of leads. It's just out after all the crazy stuff. It's sort of this sort of chord progression that's like, but then I kind of play like this minor version of the. So if you repeat that, it's just like, it's like, but then I do one little smaller bar, but I make that bar just a minor version of the third shape. So
Oh,
so little things like that where it's like, oh, what just happened there? And then it's like back to normal sort of thing.
yeah,
I love sort of doing stuff like that. So it's similar to what you're doing, like with that little dominant note, and it's just like, oh, it's
yeah, yeah. That's
it
great.
doesn't need to be anything super complicated. You're literally changing one, two note stops, but it changes the complete feel and sort of color of that whole passage and the song. And in that sense, it obviously added like a bit of a playful kind of like end of a Disney movie kind of like montage sort of thing, where
Right.
it's like it's sort of hitting the crescendo sort of thing, which I love that kind of mood, like
Yeah,
particularly heading to the end of the song.
yeah.
Um, that's just something I've always kind of gravitated towards. But it could be anything. But that's the first thing that sort of sprung to mind when you mentioned your dominant thing. I'm sure there's a couple other things I just can't think of right
Yeah, yeah, for
now.
sure. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I like that. Sneaking in one note difference into a thing that you're already familiar with is a great way to bring new life to something that is familiar to people. So you play a lick, you're playing a lick, and then you change one note, and it's like um, it just gives something so familiar to somebody, and then they're like in a land of familiarity, but the sky is a different color or something. You know what I mean? Where they're like, "Hey, this is like it's like almost eerie." You know, it's
Hmm.
kind of a cool way to give somebody more of the same. You're basically maximizing, and this is something that I've been trying to do lately, maximizing the amount of material you can get from a single idea. You know, and because like if you
Yeah,
listen
man.
to video game soundtracks, you get like Dark Souls or Elden Ring or Bloodborne or like all those From Software games. They have a chord progression that they play, and they try to maximize that idea. Or like plenty of the great composers would do that. Mozart would do that quite a bit. He'd have a leitmotif or a motif or whatever, or an idea, and then he would come back to it later with a small tweak, and it's
Hmm.
just like it because you don't need to be sitting there banging your head against the table for many hours trying to come up with new great idea after new great idea after new great idea. It's just, I mean, in my opinion, it's not good. No song can have great idea, great idea, great. You don't even want that, honestly. Like
Mm.
what you want is to tell a story, and every moment of a story is not incredible. It's like you need the dull, not the dull, but you need the less important stuff in order to highlight the more important stuff. You need the peaks and valleys. It's like otherwise it's not a journey that you're taking,
I
you know?
agree. I mean,
Yeah.
that's you've nailed it on the head.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it takes the sort of quieter, maybe more simple or straightforward sections to really make the more outside stuff pop even more. If the
Yeah.
whole song was just atonal and strange, you sort of just treat it as one. You sort of take it for granted. You sort of treat it as sort of one big body of, oh, okay, these guys are just trying to be crazy or whatever. But yeah, there's something really cool about like something that sounds safe or inside, and then they subvert it just for a second, because then from that moment on, even if the song is safe for the rest of the song, it's like, okay, what are they going to do next, sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
you don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And I get really interested in sort of music that can do that. So bands like Hiatus Cody and the sort of like more soulful sort of stuff, and of Snarky Puppy, if you've heard
Oh,
much of
totally.
them
Yeah.
as well.
Of course.
But I mean, a lot of metal bands do it as well. I mean, you guys are pretty much like masters of that sort of thing, of like just sounding safe and then just like, oh god, it's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
super
Well,
heavy all of a sudden.
it's
Um,
yeah, it's a tool. Like I said before, it's a tool that you can use where you create the valleys so that you can make the peak even crazier. And it's like
mhm,
like I come from like a very like I want it to sound very orchestral. I want our music to be, even though it's at velocity 10 on the drums, everything always like as crazy as possible as much as we can. We need to balance it. And I mean, you can be the biggest technical death metal fan in the world. You can't listen to an hour of the craziest shit and still be like, yeah, I'm going to put that on again. It's just so hard to listen to. And especially in a live setting where frequencies are bouncing off the walls like crazy,
yeah.
it just doesn't work. We're still humans. You can love the most crazy, dissonant music possible, but sometimes you just want a little bit of niceness. And it's like that kind of nice, kind of safe feeling is yeah, I mean, it's a great tool to sort of set people up to hear the crazier shit so that they can they can prepare themselves. But
Yeah, it makes them
yeah,
makes it pop more and just it
yeah,
just less fatigue just doesn't have a chance to set in when
yeah.
you
That
do things
fatigue,
like that. But
yes,
and you guys do it in such a way where it doesn't have to be like soft section, loud section. I mean, it's like always a loud section for
yeah,
you,
yeah,
but you
yeah,
still make it palatable like all the way through. It's just a matter of halving the sort of beats or
right,
something like that,
yeah,
or lowering playing in the lower register or something like that. It's there's some. I mean, you guys do go in between soft and loud sections
we
quite
do.
well. And a lot as well. But it's not always the case, and still makes for a very interesting song. So there's so many ways you can do that, and I think that's really cool. And,
I
shout
have
out to From Software as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for all the
Yeah.
very nice things about my band that you're saying. I appreciate it.
Oh, dude,
I,
incredible.
I'll send you the money later. So the last question I have for today, before we're done, I won't take up much more of your time. Is what's is there a new technique that you're working on right now that you're like that's my new shit? Do you have something new?
Um, I mean, I was trying to get my hand around thumping and all that sort of thing, but
Right.
can't do it. I just can't. I mean, I'm a lot better now than I was, say, a couple of weeks ago, but not to the point where I'm even going to bother showing you.
Sure. Yeah, I understand.
And nor is it like anything kind of new. But really, for me at the moment, it's just kind of refining what I kind of already known. Um, I'm a big sort of advocate for like focus on your strengths rather than having to worry about your weaknesses. I don't know, sort of not that I'm a master of anything by any means, but if I know I've gravitated towards one style, so in this case it's alternate picking or like rhythm playing and more just general metal style playing, I'll just make sure I sort of hone in on those and be the best of that I can be,
Wow.
rather than like it's fun to learn new things and all that sort of and all that sort of thing. But it's like I think about it from am I going to use this in a song? Probably not, right? So I'd probably
Right.
just work on the techniques that I know excite me the most. So it's really just sort of alternate picking and really just cleaning up. I mean, I want to work on more hybrid stuff, but like
Hmm.
nothing like to the level you're doing. Um, Otherwise, it's just still sort of refining the alternate picking stuff. Like I said before, it's like if you don't work on it for
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a few days, I swear the experience bar actually, you go back a level or two. I swear, at least for me anyway.
Yeah. Right.
It's one of those things. It's not like it's the opposite of riding a bike. You have to. It's like kind of keep. At least I do. And again, you can probably not play for a month and still be a beast. But
Well,
um,
the thing is, guitar is easy to learn in a way. It is difficult to learn, but there is an ease to being able to just pick up a guitar and play some strings. And so you could learn a couple chords. It would take you a year or whatever, but it's nearly or it is impossible to master. And a bike is basically way easier to learn, and I would say probably easier also to really master unless you're doing like the most insane BMX kind of stuff. There is a high level of biking and stuff like that. With guitar, it's like such a wide breadth of what you could do with it that it's just the type of skill that you're doing is just it's just something else. Like playing music, and that's not to shit talk anybody that rides bikes for a living or whatever you're doing. I'm sure that it is a crazy skill to be able to do really really well, and I mean I'm okay at it. But you're right, you can pick up a bike and I'll go on my I haven't biked since last year. I'll go. I'm there. I'm back at it, but I'm not doing
mm,
high level things that require really small muscle movements that need to be kept up in a way. And I think you're right. I mean, when I don't play for a while, when I don't focus on those core fundamentals, and or when I don't focus on my speed ceiling, I do lose that. Or when I don't focus on my cleanliness with guitar, then I definitely lose a little bit of it. But it is always kind of there to be able to go back to and kind of like refine it and understand that yeah, I mean the basic stuff is the most important. I mean, honestly, dude, if anybody ever asks me what the most important exercise on guitar, in my opinion, is, it's 4 note per string chromatic exercise.
mm,
That has everything. It's got positional thinking. You can change positions. It has alternate picking. So you're building an autonomous right hand. You have equal velocity. You're using all 4 fingers. You're trying to figure out where your thumb is on the back of the neck. You basically have all. This is the cornerstone of my guitar playing. Is that you're trying to keep fingers on the ascending, and then while putting more on. So you have like the one on, now two on, now three, and they all have to stay on. They have to stay close to the fretboard. Same thing with the reverse, although it's the opposite. You have fingers coming off, but other ones have to stay on, and they can't go off that far because you're going to need them in a second. Like, it has kind of everything, And I mean, if anybody
That's
ever
a good
asks
point.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it, dude. And then from there you can make it 3 note per string, you can make it 5 note per string, you can change the movements, you can add a stretch, you can double pick. You can take that thing and just make all the exercises that you personally need out of it. And that's how I've always practiced guitars. What do I need to work on? I wasn't like, I'm going to listen to what everybody else tells me to work on. It's like, no, what do I feel like I need to work on? And honestly, the most important thing for practicing is being honest. It's like you cannot practice and be dishonest with yourself and expect to get anywhere with the instrument. That's number one, you know? I
Mhm.
don't know if you've ever thought about that. I'm sure you have. But
Yeah, for
like
sure.
for you practicing, like what is what for you, what is it? What is practice? Why do you do it? What is your thought process? If you pick up a guitar and you're like, I'm gonna practice, why are you doing it? Like what for you
Mhm.
personally, what are you doing? Like what is your
It's
goal?
exactly that. I mean, just sort of keeping up with your own sort of abilities in a way. Just like you said, when you sort of get to this level where it's taken 10 plus years to sort of refine it to get to this point, it's really
Yep.
just a matter of maintenance at this point. It's sort of
Yes.
like,
Yes, you are
so
right.
really for me, warm up is really just maintenance work. It's just making sure I can kind of get to, um, one, what I could play yesterday, and two, how I can kind of, you know, further that going forward, um and keep refining it in a way, because there's no like it's a never ending journey. Like you're always going
Yes.
to find little optimizations and things of your own playing, and maybe even different ways you may have approached it. It's like, oh, I used to play like this, but now, oh, maybe if I do it like this, or maybe add a pull off or something like that, I can get a lot more um cleanliness, or kind
Mhm.
of yeah, just like more speed or something from that. Like, and unless concerned about like having to pick every single note all the
Right.
time forever.
Yes.
Like for me, it's about, at this point, it's like, okay, I've got the tools that allow me to do these things. How can I make something that sounds listenable to me and hopefully to other people? Um, Irrespective of what technique you need to sort of throw in there.
Yeah.
So I was doing, you mentioned something kind of new, and I was sort of doing something that was around, it's sort of like a pull off and then a pick and then a pull off again. So I'll play it slow. So I was like, but if you pull off that note and pull off the last note, they kind of act as your
Chunk.
anchors. So you can do
Yeah.
stuff like, those little resets with the pull offs, like give you a chance to, like, you can add pinches in there. So little things like that, where it's just like, okay, well, if I was to pick all that, I could probably get it eventually, like pretty clean, but it's not going to sound as, like, I guess, dynamically interesting if
Yes.
you add the little, it's those little pull offs that add sort of some sort of dynamic interest there, and I'm more focused on how things sound rather than um, having technique be the reason,
Mhm.
like the leading reason why you want to play something like that. I
Yeah.
think it's important to be able to, like, pick in any direction you want at any given time. But if not, like, then make the most of your weaknesses. Some people can't also pick very well, and you know most of the time I agree with myself with that one. It's very rarely I actually get it right myself, but there's sort of utilizing all your tools in a way to make something that sounds good, rather than something that is, like, you shouldn't get minus points because you're not picking every single note. It
Yeah,
should just
yeah.
sound good.
Yeah.
That's what I'm sort of getting at. There's no real, like, don't feel bad. People, I mean, like that, the hybrid thing you did, like, one, I can't do that. Two, it sounds freaking killer. And there's so many benefits to what you can do with that technique you
True.
did. Like, obviously, string skipping would be like the same difficulty as if you're just doing
Yes.
like two
Yes.
parallel strings.
That's
So,
a big reason
whereas
why I
alternate
do it.
picking,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but like if you did that same thing, like skipping three strings, it's the difficulty is like exponential, really. Like,
Mhm.
so there's a lot of benefits to, like, finding economical ways to play the guitar instead of just focusing solely on having to pick everything. Um, I don't know, like, there's something fun about utilizing those weaknesses. So, for instance, I can't thump, but if I can play a thump riff using, say, like a finger and a pick, and
Yeah.
make it sound kind of close,
Yeah.
then sure, it won't be the same thing, but you know, what's the point of playing the same thing? Someone's already done it. Like, just do, you can do it differently, and you can actually create different things out of that. those limitations. So
Yeah.
um, that's
Yeah.
what I'm sort of an advocate for anyway. Like, yeah, the picking thing was just sort of a byproduct of the type of playing that felt natural to me, plus what I liked hearing. But like, it's not all I'm just striving to be. So yeah,
Well,
that's that.
whatever you did it very well. I want to give you a chance to say whatever you have any new projects you're working on? Anything new that people can check out
Yeah.
musically or anything else?
Um, yeah, definitely. So I'm going to be putting out a couple of songs of hopefully a new body of work sometime this year. Probably in the next. Probably won't be out by the time this is out, but or might be. We'll have at least one single, and I've got a guitar messenger course coming out. So like if you want to
Oh,
really do a deep dive on all like the sort of picking and sort of left hand ideas, that's going to be coming out pretty soon as well.
nice.
And then just working on some songs with some other artists. Jake from the Helix Nebula, we're doing like a little thing as well. So
Great.
quite a bit in the works. It's all a, sort of a bit slow at the moment, but I'm knowing how everything kind of works in my life. It's sort of when it rains, it pours. So
I
I'm looking
get
forward to at least putting some new music out because it's been an age, and I'm really proud of what I've written. So yeah, that should be exciting.
as a I know that you do have other stuff in your life that you do. You have a I think kind of a more regular kind of day job. That's correct, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, sadly.
So yeah,
For now anyway, we'll see
yeah.
what happens. It's
But
more
like,
if enough people buy my courses in music, then that might change. But
hey, that's
no
great.
obligations, no
Yeah,
obligations. Like,
yeah,
I'm good. I'm happy. Like,
yeah,
I'm glad people enjoy it and take the time to listen to the stuff I do, and
yeah.
that's all I can ask for, really.
Absolutely. But I mean, you're right though. When projects come in, I mean, as a musician, I find myself, bored for 2 weeks, and I go, "Fuck, I don't have a lot going on," and then I'm like, "Oh my god, I have way too much going on."
I know. Yeah, just give me a minute, just 1 minute,
Yeah,
guys. That's all I'm asking.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
turn into a different person,
it'll just
especially for you because all the world tours you do, and like I don't have those stresses yet, but yeah.
Well, the touring is it is less. I mean, the touring is the fun part. It's not the work. The work is done the 9 months before the tour, and the tour is the gift that you get from all the work that you did. And if you did all your work great, if you did it all properly, and you did all the little things, and you really paid attention to the details, then you get a great bonus, which is the tour. I mean, that being said, tour is generally pretty boring. It's a lot of sitting around. It's a lot of waiting, but overall it's a net positive and it's very fun and it's a very fulfilling thing for me to do. And I have time to do stuff on the road a little bit, on my laptop or whatever. And I generally just kind of like put things off while I'm on tour, but for the most part. I'm an adult. I'll still do my taxes if I need to, that kind of thing on tour. But for the most part, yeah, it's just like I'm on tour. This is kind of my time to do this. But all the work happens before. But yeah, I mean, we're getting ready to announce a tour right now. And it's like, oh boy, we haven't even announced it, and it's been months and months and months of work, and there's still so many months left of work before we even get to go.
Mm.
But you know what? Being a musician is just like that. You just have gigs that come up, and then they take up all your time, and you go, oh my god, I'm stressed out all the time. And then you go back to being like, I suck at guitar. Why is anybody? I got nothing going on. So it's just waves.
Man.
It's how it is.
Oh, no, I'm kind of in one of those little, I guess, lulls at the moment
Yeah, yeah,
myself, so I totally get it. Like,
yeah,
just like I'm not really posting much and stuff. That'll change, but
yeah.
um, you just you just gotta go with it. Like, I
You
think
got to
once
go
you
with
once you
it.
sort of been doing this long enough, you just realize you can't just create magic out of thin air. Like,
It's
you just
true.
gotta,
Yeah,
and you can't stress yourself out too much as well. It's just not really worth like
totally.
your physical health over a couple wiggly notes in the
Well,
air.
I'll end our call with being like this, a bit of a reality check to anybody playing guitar. Here's my reality check. Okay. The thing that we're doing without playing it through an amp sounds like this, and I'll put my microphone up to my guitar so you can hear it. That sounds like shit.
Yeah.
What we're doing, that's what it sounds like. Pink, pink, pink. It is almost nothing. Like, just take the time and make sure to remember, oh my god, it's like if you're doing a tour, if you're writing music, whatever, that's the reality of what a guitar is. It's not, holy crap, it's everything so amazing and that person's so much better than me. It's like we all sound like that when we're not plugged in, except for maybe Jason Richardson.
Mhm.
who I think probably sounds better
There
than
are
anybody else.
exceptions, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
or
not the rule,
Guthrie
absolutely, yeah.
Govan or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, for the
exactly.
most part, it's just an instrument. But anyway, thank you so much for taking the time with
Yeah.
me, Stephen. And I feel like I learned quite a bit. I really admire your guitar playing, and I'm
Likewise, man, this
honored.
has
I'm
been an
honored.
absolute privilege, dude.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. That's, yeah, honored to say the least. So, yeah, I'd love to do it again sometime.
absolutely. We'll make it happen. Thank you so much, buddy.
Catch you, man. Have a good one.